y'all, it's your favorite country girl, Renee Davis, and I'm back with a new episode of Love Kills by Melanin Mayhem. Love Kills is guaranteed to make your blood pressure go up and get your cussing game on point because I'm spilling all the tea on crimes of passion that prove relationships can be complicated and deadly. You see, Love Kills brings you the stories of relationships and situationships that went hella wrong and resulted in somebody getting their water turned off permanently, if you know what I'm saying. I'm gonna give you the who, the what, the where, and why I think this shit is crazy. We get in and we get out quick, just like a robbery. I got a story. You want to hear it? Well, here it go. Well, this week, y'all, we are headed to Ohio for a tale about some shit that went down in a neighborhood. Now, I had to think about this for a minute because I never really pay much attention to my neighbors, no more than the occasional wave or head nod, if we just so happen to be outside at the same time. But I don't know their names or anything like that. We don't mix and mingle. They are never invited to the cookout. Like, I low-key probably couldn't pick them out of a lineup if my life depended on it. And luckily, my life don't depend on me knowing my neighbors. They low-key, I'm low-key, and it works for us. But what about when you got a beef with your neighbor? Because I've never experienced this type of situation. I gotta admit, I didn't know that it could get bad. Like, really bad. But honey, today's tale of Love Kills showed me just how bad shit can get out there with people you share land boundaries with. You see, what you do when you got a neighbor that feels like they are the judge, the jury, and the executioner of everything that goes on in the neighborhood and of everyone that lives in the neighborhood. Now, yeah, let's put this shit in a different light. You see, the dude we're going to talk about today, his name is Stanley Ford. And Stanley was born and bred in Akron, Ohio. His mama raised him at a house at 1370 Hillcrest Street. And when Stanley got to be a grown man, he bought the house right in front of his mama's house at 1374 Hillcrest Street. And now, trust, ain't nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of people that never leave the street that they were born on or the neighborhood that they grew up in. And as far as I can tell, Stanley was an okay kind of guy. Like, he was church going, a very, very, very devout Christian. He's married. His wife is named Zanetta. They got a couple of kids. I mean, there are no scandals. It doesn't appear that he had a community penis, and he never laid a hand on Zanetta or them babies. Well, shit, Nay. Why are we talking about this nigga then? Well, the relationship that went bad on today's episode is that relationship between neighbors. Again, Stanley was born and raised in this neighborhood, and he know everybody and apparently all their business. And as long as Stanley thought that you were exhibiting good Christian morals and fortitude, you were all right with him. But if you were out here of the worldly ways of man and into any mannerism of premarital procreation or pharmaceutical indulgences of the recreational variety, or if you believed in laying your tithe money down on some scratch-offs or a dice game or some spades, well then Stanley had a whole ass problem with you because you were turning his neighborhood, his little Garden of Eden, into Sodom and Gomorrah. And he couldn't have that. Oh, no. And if it had just stayed at the talking shit level, we probably wouldn't be talking about Stanley's ass. But if he the subject of a Love Kills episode, then we know that Stanley has disconnected somebody. And that's crazy to think that a neighborhood personality conflict escalated to murder. And not just murder, multiple murders. Yes, honey, plural. Stanley was a sure-enough murdering murderer that murdered, honey. I'm gonna set the scene for you. Stanley lives at 1374 Hillcrest. And from Stanley's front porch, he can see basically all of Fultz Street. Well, at 719 Fultz Street, which is across the street from Stanley's front door, there lived a man named Lindell Lewis. Lindell had a girlfriend that lived with him. Her name was Gloria Hart. And they had been together for a bunch of years. So they was basically common law married because Stanley don't play that shacking up shit. Well, in the beginning, Stanley and Lindell, they were cool. Like, Lindell was a God-fearing man and that was fine with Stanley. But then over the years, this God-fearing man, Lindell, he opened up his home as a place of, shall we call it, second chances. Jesus hung with the criminals and the pimps and the drug dealers too. too, and so did Lindell. So in his mind, for Lindell, if you used to be fucked up or still currently fucked up a little bit and, you ain't got your shit together, you fresh out of the joint, whatever the case may be, Lindell would let you stay at his place. Because, these is partners and you can't help who you know. And friends don't turn their backs on friends, right? So Lindell starts to have an interesting mix of characters hanging around and in some cases popping a squat for a spell at his house. And baby, Lindell had the room. I mean, the house is big that he lives in. It's just him and Gloria. This house is like a 2-story house, so they had plenty of room for somebody to come and get themselves together. But you see, Stanley didn't like some of the peoples that was now residing at and kicking it at Lindell's house, and Stanley didn't like the activities that were going on at Lindell's house now. So now we got ourselves a motherfucking problem. So what was once a friendly relationship between neighbors has turned hella contentious because Stanley was the type to run up on a bitch and fuck up a good time. And in turn, Lindell would have to put Stanley in his motherfucking place. Now, mind you, these are mature men folks. We ain't talking about no young niggas by a long shot. No spring chickens in this goddamn story. I mean, Stanley is in his 50s and Lindell is damn near 70s, and he ain't long been had his hip replaced. But they out here threatening to whoop each other's ass in the middle of the road. If y'all don't go sit y'all asses down somewhere. But Stanley got smoke with everybody and he with all this shit. So at this point, there's no love lost between Stanley and Lindell and Lindell's company, right? Well, Lindell is trying to keep some semblance of peace, right? And he decides that he's going to have the peoples that do the grown folks activities at his house. He's got this little van and it's, parked on his property. And so the peoples are going to do grown folks activities in the van. And that's literally what they did. Like if there was a smoke session going on, it was now happening in the van. Ooh, them niggas was hot boxing like a mug. I'm sorry, that not the point. And, if they're passing a bottle of some of that brown, then the bottle was passed in the van. I mean, that really sounds like a happy medium. That, for me, is going above and beyond. This my goddamn house. If we drinking and we smoking, we fucking drinking and we smoking. That shit is not illegal in most places. At least drinking ain't. I mean, everybody smoke weed for the most part. I'm just saying, what you do in your house is what you do in your house. And the fact that you are now making arrangements for people to get out of sight so that Stanley can't see it, for me, that's above and beyond Lindell. You a better man than me. That's all I got to say. Well, I know this. Somebody was not happy with the happy medium because that van that everybody was going in to do their grown folk shit, well, it mysteriously caught fire one night. Yes. Luckily, nobody was inside or got hurt or anything, but it totally took the van out the game, though. I wonder who didn't want that van there anymore. Well, after the spontaneous combustion of the van, Lindell felt like, you know what? I think I need to put a little neighborhood watch on the neighborhood watch to see what the fuck is going on in the hood, right? Because literally somebody just set fire to something in his yard. So he got a friend named Terrence Sibley. That's the homie, right? And Terrence is good with cameras and mounting shit or whatever. So Lindell was like, hey, can you help me by installing these cameras that I got around my house because I got a neighbor that's on some bullshit, right? So Terrence was like, yeah, bet, no problem. So he comes over and he starts mounting the cameras on the outside of Lindell's house. Now, Lindell asked him to make sure to point the camera so that they can full on see Stanley's house, right? And as Terrence is putting these cameras up, how about Stanley come out his house and starts cussing Terrence out? Now, Terrence don't live here. Terrence is just doing a job. Why is you all up in this man's face? But Terrence is a good one because he don't pay Stanley no mind. He finishes mounting the cameras all around Lindell and Gloria's house. Now, this is like 2016. This is not like in the Stone Age. Understand that everybody in this neighborhood got cameras on their houses in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, I want to throw that out there as I set up what the fuck is about to happen. So, Lindell and Gloria, they keep kicking it at their house the way they want to, as they should have. And then tragedy struck. Y'all ain't gonna believe this shit. Some nigga tried 3 motherfucking times to set 719 Fultz Street on fire. Yeah, where Lindell and Gloria live at. Their house. You heard me. I said three times. 3 times. If at first you don't succeed was a person, it would be this arsonist motherfucker. The date is April 18th, 2016. You see, it all started at 3:13 in the morning. Somebody is on camera walking towards Lindell's house at 719 Fultz Street. At 3:15 a.m., you can see somebody skeeting a bottle of something on the house, and then a whoosh, the arsonist takes off, but guess what? The fire doesn't catch. It goes out. So at 3:17 a.m., somebody is moving around on the side of 1374 Hillcrest. That's Stanley's house. At 3:20 a.m., a light goes on in Stanley's house at 1374 Hillcrest. Then the light goes off, and then somebody opens the front door. I'm thinking they was looking to see if the fire was firing and realized the fire wasn't firing. So at 3:21, somebody turned the light on and off again, and then at 3:25, you see a figure leaving 1374 Hillcrest going back towards 719 Fultz. At 3:26, you see somebody go skeet, skeet, and then whoosh, and then the figure runs off, and they head back to 1374 Hillcrest. But once again, the fire fizzles out. God damn. Now I'm gonna tell you, maybe, just maybe, this is a sign that you should really reconsider what you're doing. I mean, because clearly Black Jesus is giving you an out. Take the L. You tried, it didn't succeed, let it go. But oh no, not a self-righteous motherfucker on a mission. So at 3:28 a.m., somebody is playing with the lights in the front door at 1374 Hillcrest, Stanley's house. I'm assuming that by now you are realizing that for the second time, there is no fire. Well, at 3:33 a.m., the arsonist heads back to 719 Fulton Street. They're going to try that thing one more time because, you know, the third time is always the charm. This time, the fire starter is literally full on camera. You really still can't see who it is, but they are full body on the camera up from the neighbor's house. You see this person skeet, 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 skeet one more time. And this time, the whoosh is real. It's like whoosh, 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 whoosh. And now all you see is some dude hauling ass behind 1370 Hillcrest. Now remember, that's Stanley's house. 3 minutes later, another neighbor calls 911 to report that a house is on fire. Well, all that skeet skeet got that house fully engulfed on the lower half. You know where the doors are, and the occupants of 719 Fulton Street, they are awake and fully aware that the house that they were just sleeping in is on fire, but they can't all get out. Now, one of the homies does manage to get out, but you know, Lindell just had hip surgery. He can't haul ass like he used to. Lindell bust out a window. Gloria do too, but they're upstairs, and it's a long ass drop to the ground. So, you know, neighbors are standing around helplessly because they can't do shit but listen to Gloria and Lindell holler about how they trapped. And then they have to listen to Gloria and Lindell coughing because that smoke is thick, thick. And then all they hear is the sounds of fire. No more sounds coming from Gloria or Lindell. So the fire department, they get there and they do what they do, and the fire is out. Now, Lindell and Gloria, they're going on to the room, slightly on the crispity crunchity side. Not the point. I watch fire department shows, right? And I go along on my fair share of arson investigations because of that. So understand, once the fire was out, AFD, that's the Akron Fire Department, they knew that it was some shit in the game. The fire started outside the house at 3:30 in the morning. That's suspicious as a motherfucker just in and of itself, right? So, because we got a little suspiciousness here, they called in an arson investigator. Investigator Peterman from the Ohio State Fire Marshal's office. He pulled up and he was like, shit, I could smell the gas from the car. Yeah, somebody set this house on fire right here on the porch. This here fire is absolutely arson. So, okay, now we know a crime actually happened and Lindell and Gloria didn't die by accident. And so now the police are going door to door, and in their investigation, it became crystal clear that Lindell and them did not get along with their neighbor across the street. Everybody they talked to was dropping Stanley Ford's name. So we've got Detective Stewart, Tanisha Stewart from the Akron Police Department, and then we've got Investigator Polk from the Akron Fire Department. So they go holler at Stanley. And now Stanley, good snitching ass, got plenty to say about the dead. He don't give a fuck. Stanley say Lindell was a vicious nigga that kept a porch full of niggas sitting around drinking liquor all the time, and Lindell was pimping cause he had coochie for sale if a nigga wanted to buy a little something. And then I'm like, sir, them folks just got barbecued. You don't think you should go a little easy on them? Like, you going extra hard. You know black folks don't talk ill of the dead even when they ain't shit. I mean, have some semblance of respect. They still smoking. Nah, that nigga Stanley doubled down even harder. He tells the detective that's trying to figure out who got beef with Lindell and might have roasted him and his girl, yeah, that detective. Stanley tells that detective that Lindell and all his crew was bad to the bone, just a worration to the neighborhood. And along with the coochie saleswomen, it was a whole bunch of sissies hanging over there too. Now that was his word, not mine. And one of them sissies had the nerve to ask Stanley how long his dick was. Ooh, woo! So the detective was like, well, okay, well, what about Gloria? You got anything nice to say about Gloria? Shit, Stanley still had rounds in the chamber for her ass too. He was like, shit, Gloria wasn't shit neither. She was always drunk and high. Stanley said, I don't fuck with none of them because I have standards. Again, nigga, you are talking to the popo and the arson investigating people. You ain't even gonna try to make it look like you ain't have nothing to do with throwing a couple of motherfuckers on the grill? Like, at all? Okay. So, Detective Tanisha Stewart, she felt like Stanley was the motherfucker on the grill, but she didn't have enough concrete evidence to arrest him. You know, evidence that would stick. I mean, sure, there is video, but it's grainy. You can't tell who in the video. And yes, the arsonist ran behind Stanley's house and didn't pop up nowhere else on any other cameras, but that's circumstantial too. And yeah, Stanley was talking cash shit and him and the deceased had beef, but being an asshole and having bad blood between neighbors is not a crime. So Detective Stewart, she just sat back in the cut and she just waited. She kept checking, she kept documenting, she kept following the evidence because she knew eventually what was done in the dark gonna absolutely come to the light. So life on Fultz and Hillcrest Streets, it moves on. Well, eventually a family moves into a house at 693 Fultz Street. That's just a couple of doors away from where Lindell and Gloria used to live. Now, this is a big family, too. It's a man, a woman, and their kids. We got 35-year-old Dennis Huggins, who is from the Wakandan tribe, and then we have 38-year-old Angela Boggs of the Caucasic Mountain Peoples, along with their 5 children. 14-year-old Jared, who is Angela's son from a previous marriage, and then their 6-year-old Deja, 5-year-old Kyle, 3-year-old Olivia, and 1-year-old Cameron. These are the kids between Dennis and Angela. Now, when they move in, of course, the neighborhood's self-appointed mayor comes to check them out and welcome them to his neighborhood. Yeah, I'm talking about Stanley. And word on the curb is that Stanley had wanted to buy this house that they just moved in, but was unable to for whatever reason. So he was slightly salty around the edges that this family was in his would have been, should have been shit. You know what I'm saying? But he was okay. He was a good Christian man that went to church every Sunday, right? And he finds out that this family that moves in, they're good Christian people too. They go to church together every Sunday. So they pass the inspection and everything is good on the block. Till it wasn't. You see, Dennis, being a Wakandian, he liked to get a little something on the grill on the weekend, especially after church. And y'all know how we love to go our relatives' house that keep that grill seasoned and producing succulent meats and veggies and shit. And so at Dennis and Angela's house, there was always a good amount of family and friends over there kicking it, fellowshipping, if you will. Well, neighborhood watch ass Stanley, he found an occasion or 3, well, some things that was going on at 693 Fultz Street, you know, at Dennis and Angela's house. He didn't like what he saw, and he wasn't gonna have this going on in his neighborhood. Oh, yes, but see, at one of them there barbecues, he had the opportunity to see some teenagers out there smoking on the devil's lettuce. You know, that Mary Jane. And one of them looked like had the nerve to pass a little bag of marijuana to the teenage boy that lived at 693 Fultz Street. So, according to the street committee, Stanley took his ass right on up in Dennis's face and told him, we don't do that over here. And you need to get your people because there will be no drug dealing over here. And you know, Dennis is confused because he don't know what the fuck Stanley is talking about. And he wants Stanley to basically back the fuck up. But Stanley wasn't trying to hear none of that. And he is calling out their 14-year-old son. And the son is like, well, okay, since you're going to put me on the spot. Okay, daddy. Yeah, cuz had a nickel bag and, you know, we was just going to smoke a little something. Now, mind you, this is not a possession with intent to distribute type of situation. What we have here is some children, some teenagers doing teenage shit. Can you let this daddy handle his own business and his own household, sir? Not Stanley. From this point on, this was Sodom and Gomorrah, and he was not going to stand for that in his neighborhood. Man, he stayed fucking with them people every chance he could. And I'm gonna tell you, hats off to Dennis and Angela, cause Stanley would have been fucked up fucking with me and mine. Y'all know I don't play that shit. And what's really crazy is that Dennis and Angela were thinking about moving out of the state of Ohio, and Stanley's antics were making that decision kind of easy because they was tired of his punk ass. And strange shit was happening on the block, and it was kind of making them a little uneasy. Like that January 23rd, 2017, somebody's car caught on fire again in the neighborhood. And it seemed kind of intentional because how many spontaneous combustions can you have on one goddamn street? I mean, somebody likes starting fires around this motherfucker. But then, y'all, tragedy struck for real. On May 15th, 2017, 693 Fulton Street catches on fire. And at 2:46 in the morning, Stanley Ford, Stanley's wife, she is the one that calls 911 to report that the house down the street is on fire. That 693 Fulton Street is burning, baby. Now, mind you, this is 2 doors down from Lindell's house that just caught on fire less than a year ago. So the fire department, they come, but it's too late. The house is engulfed in flames. They cannot get inside to the family that is trapped in there. And by the time the flames are out, the entire family is communing with the Lord. Now, the fire department think that this here fire is awfully coincidental to the same fire that happened last year at 719 Fulton Street, a couple of doors down. So they called the fire investigator in again, and the fire investigator pulled up on the scene and once again was like, yep, I smell the gas. And he walked up on the scene and he's like, look at here. Somebody poured accelerant all over the porch. And just like the last one that happened on this street, the porch caught fire and the fire rose around the house, blocking any escape for anybody in the house. Now, I think any manner of killation is bad, but this family died a horrible death. They were all together too. Dennis and Angela were together with the younger kids trying to shield them. The older son was just a couple of steps away trying to get to some steps. And the dog. He even killed the dog. I mean, to be burned to death is fuckery for real. And I know sometimes adult beef can be serious, but even if you beefing hard as hell with Dennis and or Angela, them kids ain't had nothing to do with nothing. They were literal babies in this house, and you burn them alive. That's some nasty, evil, non-Christian work right there, honey. So, once the investigation is completed on the house, they determine again that accelerant was used on the porch, somebody struck a flame, and the fire went from the porch up the side of the house, engulfed the whole house. The family didn't have a chance. So now, Akron PD, they got to do something because a total of 9 people have died on this one street in less than 12 months in the same manner. And they know who they thought did the first fire kill, right? Now it's time to run back up on Stanley or whatever. But they also had another suspect because you see Angela, before she went black and never went back, she used to be in the marital groove with a fellow caucastical crony named Patrick Boggs. And see, her oldest child, that was his son. And apparently, Patrick and Angela had a little bad blood. And when I say bad blood, I mean Patrick had set Angela on fire that one time because he had found out that she had jungle fever, and he served 12 years for turning Angela into his old flame, literally. Yeah, that's toxic. And the police are like, well, you know what? Maybe Patrick is still in his feelings about how things turned out with Angela, enough to make Patrick want to cut the water off for the nigga that she was fucking with and the little nigglets that they produced. So the police needed to check out Patrick immediately, and they pulled up on him and yoked him up because, he's still on probation or whatnot. They searched his shit, they tracked down his movements, and after doing all of that, they realized that Patrick was where he was supposed to be during this little bonfire. And after talking to him, they came to the conclusion that he wasn't checking for Angela and her family at all. Like, nothing. He ghosts, dust. He don't feel nothing for them. So, Patrick is not the fire starter. So, okay. Now we need to go back and we need to start looking at all this camera footage because remember I told you, everybody in the neighborhood got cameras on their house, right? And baby, when they got the neighborhood footage, the video was eye-opening. Let me run it down for you. At 12:58 a.m., somebody was out walking in front of 1374 Hillcrest, Stanley's house, right? At 1 a.m., somebody turned the alarm off at 1374. Now, this is important because this is the house that while Stanley and his family, they live at 1370 full time. But Stanley's mama owned 1374. And when she died, Stanley inherited that house. And so Stanley's mama house, 1374 Hillcrest, they use that like an extra house. That's where they use for storage and all the extra shit went in 1374. But the lights, the gas, everything is on. Like all of the utilities are on in this house. It's just the extra house, right? Stuff like, again, clothes and lawnmowers and, oh yeah, lighter fluid and gas cans. Well, so at 1:36 a.m., somebody is walking down the street towards the house that's about to catch fire. At 1:41, somebody is seen running from 693 Fulton Street, Dennis and Angela's house. They're running towards 1374 Hillcrest Street, Stanley's house. At 1:48, somebody turns the alarm to stay at 1374 Hillcrest, Stanley's house. At 1:59, somebody turns the alarm off at 1374 Hillcrest, Stanley's house, right? At 2:12 a.m., somebody leaves 1374 Hillcrest and starts walking towards 693 Fulton Street. At 2:14, somebody is seen running away from 693 Fulton Street towards 1374 Hillcrest. At 2:21, somebody turned the alarm to stay at 1374 Hillcrest. At 2:27, somebody turned the alarm off and then looks outside the front door. At 2:38 a.m., somebody leaves 1374 Hillcrest and walks towards 693 Fulton Street again. 2 minutes later, at 2:40, somebody is hauling ass away from 693 Fulton Street back towards 1374 Hillcrest. At 2:43 a.m., somebody goes into the side door of 1374 Hillcrest. At 2:43, also somebody sets the alarm to stay at 1374 Hillcrest. And then at 2:46 a.m., Zanetta Ford, Stanley's wife, at 1374 Hillcrest, calls 911 to report that there is a fire at 693 Fulton. Let me tell you something, sir. All that moving around that you was doing at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. But here's the kicker. When the street was lit up like a Christmas tree with all the fire trucks and the ambulances and the police, after your wife called 911, you never came out of your house. Ooh, that's some nasty, trifling work right there. Now, you know, especially if you are the one to call 911, you finna be outside because, one, my neighbor's house is on fire. Oh my God, it's 2 a.m. and I'm up. Yeah, we finna go see what's going on. That's human nature. We are gawkers. We have to see with our own eyes if we are awake. But you mean to tell me all these flashing lights, Stanley, ain't none of this piqued your interest? You ain't got to come outside? I wonder why. Because you already know what was going on? Well, the police, they understood after watching these videos, it was a whole lot of shit going over here at 1374 Hillcrest. And 2 months later, on July 27, 2017, Stanley Ford was indicted on 29 charges. For the fricasseeing of 9 people, they hit that ass with 22 aggravated murder charges. Like, they hit his ass with whatever manner of murder there ever was or could be in Ohio. Malice murder, aggravated murder, murder with special intent, murder with a side of coleslaw. I mean, they just threw the book at that nigga. I mean, and then they let it be known that they were going for the disconnection. You guys to get the fuck up out of here. Now, his actual charges were 22 counts of aggravated murder with death penalty specification, 2 counts of attempted aggravated murder, 2 counts of aggravated arson, 1 count of cruelty to animals. I did tell y'all that the dog got smoked too, right? 1 count of regular run-of-the-mill arson, 1 count of aggravated menacing, because, yeah, talking shit, yeah, there's a charge for that. Ooh, honey. With that laundry list of charges, something is bound to stick. Now, Stanley makes a little piece of history with his charges too, because for the city of Akron, Ohio, no one person had ever been charged with more murders at the same time than Stanley. Him and his 9 murder charges made him infamous. Now, they hold Stanley in jail on a $7 million bail. I guess his house and his mama house together wasn't enough to get that bond right. So Stanley stat, and then of course, COVID hit and everything was shut down. He wouldn't get in front of a jury until like May of 2020. But even then, a mistrial was declared in June of 2020, all because of the COVID precautions. You remember they had to reset the world on how we did things to make sure that we was able to be 6 feet apart and have all our masks and all this, that, and the third. So it was a whole lot of things that needed to be done. Well, they crunked that thing back up in September of 2021, and this time they made it all the way through the case, and the jury found Stanley Ford guilty on all charges. Now, here's where the shit get good. The judge in the case, Judge Christina Croce, when she gave Stanley his sentence, she put a little stank on it. Because you see, the jury, they couldn't get on one accord for the death penalty, so Stanley ended up with life without parole, right? But Judge Christine, she put a little special condition in the sentencing document that stated that on the birthdays of the victims and the anniversary dates of the fires, Stanley was to be put in solitary confinement so he could think about the bullshit he had done. Ooh, I ain't even mad at you, Judge Christine. Get it, girl. If you gonna overstep with authority. Well, y'all know Stanley's lawyers did challenge that shit, and the 9th District Court of Appeals was like, I tell you what, the life sentence stands, but under Ohio law, we can't put you in timeout for solitary confinement just because you a funky bastard. We just can't do that. So they did strike that down, but you got your life sentence. So Stanley Ford is inmate A783929 at the Richland Correctional Institution. He is currently 66 years old and will be state property for the rest of his natural barbecuing life. Ooh, honey, wasn't that a mess? Like, who knew that Neighborhood Watch would take it to the extreme? I just don't understand people who feel like they have ownership over something just because of existing. Like, who cares if you lived here all your life? So what? You own the house you bought, and quiet as it's kept, you don't own that motherfucker until the deed is in hand. So to try to be the overlord of the hood, Stanley was lucky that he had the neighbors that he had, because I'm not the one or the two or the three to sit and trade words all the time. You got one time for me to cuss you out, and then I'm going to let Charlene speak for me from now on. Yeah, I know Charlene stay in my purse at all times. My peacemaker, my piece of steel that will make peace be still. I don't know who needs to hear this, but stop getting all up in people's business. What grown folks do in their house, apartment, condo, tent, or whatever it is they reside that they pay the bills on, that's their own fucking business. Everyone should mind the business that pays them and stay out of other people's lane. Ooh, honey, let's talk about this on social media. Y'all know y'all can find me by typing Melanin Mayhem Podcast or Melanin Mayhem PC on IG, X, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you haven't joined the discussion group, will you stop playing with my emotions and do what needs to be done so we can be together? You know you miss me. Oh, and if you have been under a rock or out of the country, I don't know, without access to the internet, you may not have heard the news that everybody else got, but we got a live show coming October 18th right here in Atlanta, and there will be additional cities, but don't wait for the additional because I don't know when they're coming, so get in on the good foot right now. Go ahead, get that PTO right, get your plane ticket booked so that you are in the number one more time, baby, because it's going to be litty in the city. Tickets will be on sale soon, but understand the discussion group is going to get first dibs at their tickets whenever it happens next week. Hopefully sooner than that. We're going to put links in our private discussion group pages first so that they can get in on their tickets, and then once they'll have their little head start over everyone else, and then we'll put tickets on sale for everybody. We also have a block of rooms at a hotel near the event center to make it easy on you. Oh, and don't forget that Melanin Mayhem merch is available and waiting for you over at www.melaninmayhempodcast.com. So until the next story ends in tears and tragedy and relationships take a big hit, y'all stay safe and play that shit smart. And remember, love and emotions will make you do some crazy shit. Don't get caught up and fuck around and be on an episode of Love Kills. I personally will see you in 2 Fridays for another episode of Love Kills, and every Wednesday you can still get your weekly dose of mayhem with the Melanin Mayhem podcast. I thank you so much for streaming me today. Have a fabulous rest of your day, and the country girl is out of here.
Oh, Nana, you did that.